First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my dad it's not my fault his family's broken and he should blame himself? I'm my dad's oldest child and his only child from his marriage to my mom. My mom was unable to have children after she had me, and my dad always wanted more. So he cheated and slept around, and eventually he and his current wife started an affair which came out when I was 12. She was 6 months pregnant when me and my mom learned the truth. She also had 3 kids already with a different guy or guys. He thought everything would be perfect from day one. He expected me to love his new wife and the other kids, and we would be a picture-perfect family. But I was pissed. Not gonna lie, and I didn't accept his wife or his kids or my half-brother when he was born, or for a long time after it. They would enforce family time, and it always sucked. One day, when I was 16, I told them I was there to see my dad, not play families or go along with the charade anymore. And we weren't a family, and I didn't give a crap about any of them except my dad. I think I also might have told him that he was number 1 on my crap list, but maybe I said that after he pulled me aside. I stopped going to his house after that, and there were no more attempts made at being a family. His wife's kids were super upset and extra pissed that I would dare deny them or not want to spend time with them. My dad and I have a rocky and mostly estranged relationship now. The last time we talked for real was 4 years ago when I graduated high school. But the other night, he showed up and told me it was all my fault, that everything was so broken because of what I said that day. He told me all he wanted was his family to be happy, but I wouldn't let it happen. I refused to let him blame me. So I told him it was not my fault. I was a kid who was thrown into a crappy situation after having her family broken up. I told him it was his fault and he should think about that. He tried to argue, so I said he was the cheating piece of ish who thought he could get everything he wanted. I told him it was dumb to expect me to love the woman he cheated with day one and jump up and down because she had kids. And that things rarely, if ever, work out that way when you create a family through cheating and humiliating someone, the way he humiliated my mom by bringing up her infertility. I finished by calling him a crappy person. Am I the a-hole? Did I go too far? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your father sounds self-centered and like one of those parents that piously tell themselves that they have a right to move on and find happiness, yet refuse to accept that they have no possible right to dictate how others feel. Your father wants you to go along with this game of happy families because, if you do, he can pat himself on the back and tell himself that he did nothing wrong, that it has all worked out for the best. By not playing along with the idea that you love his affair partner and her brood, you make it harder for him to pretend that his selfishness did not hurt you. Right? It's all about getting what he wants and making him look good. It's like all the hurt and pain he caused didn't matter if I was able and willing to embrace the mistakes he made and love the people he brought into my life through his crappy and messed up actions. Precisely. He is fighting against the idea that he did something wrong when he cheated on your mother and chose to put his desire to have additional children ahead of his responsibility to the child he already had. He wants you to tell him that you're happy and that you love his new family because that would allow him to tell himself that, ultimately, he did the right thing for everybody. You owe him nothing, least of all absolution. I think the worst thing about all, that is, even after it all exploded in his face and he lost me, he still doesn't want to try and fix his relationship with me. He just wants me to slide into the family he thinks he deserves and love, or even fake love them to make himself feel better. He doesn't care enough to put work into his relationship with me. Thankfully, I am in a much better place than when I was 16, but man, would it have broken me to know he would still not care about his relationship with me 6 years later. I would have been so heartbroken. Not the a-hole. He needs to take some personal responsibility if he wants a relationship with you. It's not even about this relationship with me. He still wants us to be one big happy Brady Bunch style blended family. More than anything, I think he wants to believe his wife and her kids and I would all try to have a relationship and that I would declare my love for them and say I didn't mean what I said when I was 16. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not forcing my son to go meet his real dad after 11 years? My son's father has basically said since the moment I got pregnant that my boy is not his, even though DNA was determined. The courts forced him to pay child support versus terminating his rights. The only reason this happened was because he said some questionable crap to the judge and she became salty about it. Examples: why the hell do I have to pay for a kid I don't want? Or, no, I'm not paying for him. She should have terminated. This obviously pissed off everyone in the courtroom, and the judge immediately awarded child support in my favor to spite him, in my opinion. During this, I was actually asking that his rights be terminated, and I did not request child support of any kind. The judge went against what I wanted as well. For 9 years, he has paid $136 a month for child support. During the months of October through March, we have never received anything. That means he has a lot of back child support owed. I have never contacted the state about this, as I can do without his money. Well, apparently, CPS reached out to him with a notice stating that he owes over $12,000 in back child support. From what he claims, I didn't see the notice. They did not contact me. Somehow, he found my number and called me stating that he wants to have half custody of my son. He wants a week-on, week-off visitation established. When I asked him why, his response was, well, it'll drop my child support payments, and since I'm paying for him, I have rights to him, huh? I said no. That's no reason to want to be involved with my son after 11 years. If he had said, I just want to meet him, I'm ready to be a dad, I would have said yes. Despite me already saying no, I spoke to my son about it to see how he felt. He said that he didn't want to meet him right now. My ex continued to blow my phone up to say he was bringing me back to court, and that the judge would rule in his favor because he makes more money than I do. He doesn't know how much money I make, and this was a guess on his part. He says that I'm a dumpsy for denying him rights to his son. I think he is an ignorant a-hole for trying to use my son as a way to get out of child support, and that, if it weren't for that fact alone, he wouldn't want anything to do with him anyways. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, obviously. Keep all texts and voice messages from him. This and lawyer up. Not the a-hole. Agreed with all of this. If he calls you again, get something to record the entire conversation with. Though, check to see what the laws in your area are regarding recording someone without their permission. Additionally, if you can afford it, I would get a psychologist or licensed therapist, one who has experience dealing with children in situations like this. And if they have courtroom experience, even better, to talk with your son about stuff like this. This way, you might be able to get an official letter or recommendation that you can submit to the courts to help solidify your case. Not the a-hole. By all means, go back to court. The judge will almost certainly increase child support dramatically if he's making so much money now, and slam the a-hole for blatantly trying to weaponize visitation. Also, $136 a month is like a slightly more expensive internet plan in the US. Definitely not enough to feed and clothe an 11-year-old. He needs to pay more. Not the a-hole. He's been missing a lot more than $136 a month if he's $12,000 in arrears. Joint custody doesn't always negate child support obligations. Sounds like he's just blowing smoke. If your son doesn't want to meet him and there is no visitation order in place, I wouldn't force him to visit. See, I didn't see this notice that he claims he got stating that he is $12,000 in arrears. So there's a good chance he is lying about it. Much like he does everything else. In the first 2 years of my son's life, he was supposed to be paying $380 a month because he owned part of his dad's business. I'm not sure when they lowered the payments when I didn't receive a notice about anything, but I'm assuming he either quit the job or went under the table to get them lowered the way he did. If you are in the US, they must be threatening to suspend his driver's license or another professional license. Or, where I live, you can't get a hunting license with child support in arrears in some counties. Oh boy, does it become a big deal then. Pretty much. We are in the US. He is super big into hunting and fishing, so that's probably the exact reason for all of this. Especially if he can't get a license with his child support arrears. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for canceling dinner plans to celebrate with my daughter because my stepson was upset? My daughter, 13, and stepson, 11, have not gotten along since my daughter moved in. She had previously lived with her mother, but I got default custody after her mother turned one of her 24-hour disappearing acts into a never-coming-back one. My daughter and stepson go to the same middle school and were both running for student council vice president. There was tension in the house, and my wife told my stepson that if he won, we could go out to celebrate. My daughter asked if this applied to her as well. since he wasn't her only competitor, and my wife said, of course. The campaign got pretty stressful for the both of them. Then the votes come in, and my daughter wins by 4 votes. However, because somehow the one person who ran for treasurer this year dropped out because of grades, my stepson was offered that position. He saw it as a really pitiful consolation prize and was angry that he had to take orders from my daughter. I felt very bad for my stepson, and he and his mother, who is also very type A, was very upset, even though of course my wife congratulated my daughter. My stepson refused to be comforted by the fact that older kids get more easily elected because they know more people, and his mother even offered to take her to her law office and give him some responsibilities, saying that was better experience than student council would ever be. My stepson then said, "Please tell me you're not going to rub it in my face by taking us to dinner now." My wife also looks really reluctant to go to dinner. I finally tell my daughter that we weren't going to be going to dinner because her stepbrother was very upset by the turn of events, and we need to take his feelings into consideration. And that I was impolite to gloat. That all happened Friday. My daughter ended up crying, and even now, Sunday night, she is still mad at all of us. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Yes, you're the a-hole. You broke a promise first of all, which while minor to us adults, is a huge deal to kids. And also, you showed your daughter that, even if incorrectly, you prefer your stepson to her. Ideally, you should have gone to dinner together like promised, and then had a separate outing for the stepson to console him after his loss. Your daughter is likely already reeling from her mother piecing out permanently, and her reaction is probably a combination of you going back on a promise and a residual hurt of being abandoned by a loved one. Wouldn't surprise me at least. She's your daughter. Make it up to her. Maybe even one-on-one with you and her doing something she loves to do. And your wife is an a-hole too. Her behaviors towards your daughter are questionable just from the post. She's an adult. Why was she sulking over keeping a promise to a kid, which was very simple, going to dinner together to celebrate? That shows your daughter that her stepmom doesn't care for her successes. That's a bad precedent to set. This was a real teaching moment to the stepson about being gracious in defeat. Instead, he taught his daughter that her achievements don't mean crap. I mean, this whole dynamic doesn't really sound like a cohesive family unit. It feels like a single mother with her son and a single father with his daughter living together. If the stepson was really that upset about it, but I'll reiterate, teaching moment for losing gracefully. Why couldn't Opie just go one-on-one with his daughter? Why does the whole thing have to be cancelled? So yeah, you're the a-hole, Opie. Exactly this. Why would you waste this opportunity to teach kids? You knew one of them would lose and one would be disappointed. This cannot be a surprise. Also, son will get 2 years of extra chances after his sis moves to high school. He should be pleased that she gets a go before graduating. He gets extra practice at other positions to make him a better committee member in the long run. Go to dinner and celebrate/commiserate. Daughter rubbing son's face in her win would be crappy, but it doesn't sound like that'll be a problem. The part about him being angry about having to take orders from his stepsister is icing on the cake. Maybe point out to him that it isn't taking orders, but a fun opportunity for the two of them to work together. This coupled with impolite to gloat and taking putting his feeling ahead of hers just reeks of good old-fashioned sexism. The daughter is learning her place, and that's a terrible lesson. You're the a-hole. Massive, massive, massive you're the a-hole. Your daughter worked her butt off to win the spot, and you let her whiny, jealous, sore loser stepbrother ruin the celebration for her accomplishment. You showed your daughter that her hard work and accomplishments mean nothing to you, and showed your stepson that throwing a fit will get him whatever the F he wants, no matter who it hurts. Terrible parenting. Absolute garbage. You have one and only one chance to fix this. You tell your daughter you messed up majorly, and you were incredibly sorry and will try your best to not do things like that again, and that she now gets 2 dinners out, one to celebrate and one as an apology. Then sit your wife and stepson down. Tell them both that every accomplishment deserves to be celebrated, and that all 3 of you owe your daughter an apology, and you will be taking her out for the 2 dinners. If they choose to apologize, they can go with you. If they refuse to apologize, they can keep their sore loser butts at home. Then, get in family therapy freaking ASAP. First, Opie definitely the a-hole. Second, this comment is a perfect response and I completely agree. Your poor daughter is dealing with so much right now, and you can't even recognize her for doing something as amazing as winning class vice president? That is disgusting. Am I the a-hole for telling my father to live with his choices? I, 23 male, am the oldest of 3. My younger sisters are 20 and 18. When I was 10, our father left our mom when she got sick. It really upset the family because it told us having a sick spouse wasn't something he could cope with, and it would have ended their marriage anyway. Our mom got better, and he told us it was because he left. He and I got into a huge fight about it because I knew it was BS. And a spouse leaving you doesn't mean you'll beat cancer. A couple of years after he left our mom, he remarried. Then when my father's wife was 5 months pregnant, we found out mom's cancer was back. It progressed quickly and she passed away 4 months later. The day before she died, our father's wife went into labor. He fought with us in staying with our mom because he wanted us with him. But he didn't want to leave his wife and miss the birth of their child. But we wanted to be with our mom, not her. I was 14 at the time. Our father showed up 6 hours after our mom died and told us it was time to come home, that there was a party we needed to be ready for the next day. His choices led us not wanting to live with him, and we all got out as soon as we could, much to his annoyance. My youngest sister leaving was the final straw for him, and he told me we had no right to walk away from our family, from our parents and younger siblings. I told him his wife was not our parent, and if he wanted to blame something, he should blame himself. And the choice is made. That is choosing to leave our mom because she was sick, then lie about him being the reason she got better, and then choosing to fight us on leaving our mom when she was dying because he didn't want to leave his wife, and ultimately not being there for us during that, is why we're here. And to say we shouldn't abandon him might be how he feels, but we feel very different. He told me she wouldn't have survived as long if he hadn't left her. I asked him why it wasn't his fault she died then, that if he could cure her once, why not again? That we both know it's bullcrap. Now, it's not just him that thinks I was an aid to him in that conversation. So do some of my aunts and uncles on that side. They always figured we were too hard on him for his choices, and that we should have embraced the new instead of being angry over the old. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You are absolutely not the a-hole. OP, please. Good lord. Please don't listen to your dad and some of those aunts and uncles. Your dad is a master manipulator. He's the opposite of support while you guys went through something so traumatic. Well done on you and your siblings pulling through. He is a manipulator, but he doesn't sound like a master, as it hasn't worked on his children. Death and sickness is great for showing families' true colors. I have so many family members whine but family when trying to guilt you into helping them in some way or putting up with their bull. But when the stuff hits the fan, it's nothing but crickets on their end. To hell with those people. Not they all so much. Not they all. Bet the guy's looking for a babysitter for the younger sibs. As for the rest of that side of the family, I would cut them off too. Regardless of whether dad's a-holishness is by nature or nurture, they probably share it as well. Not the a-hole. What? He abandoned his 3 children with a sick mom, then expected his abandoned kids to leave their dying mother? I say WTF again. What a selfish douche knuckle. You are so clearly not the a-hole, and your random extended family members criticizing your choices are most likely just saying crap like that to relieve their personal feelings of guilt and shame. They had years to help out and clearly didn't, so now they're feeling like a-holes. Keep on going the way you're going. You know you're right, and Reddit shall reconfirm. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for reacting badly on my sister-in-law when my nephew called me dad? I, 29 male, not sure if I maybe overreacted in this situation, but here it goes. My brother passed away in a boat accident, and sometime after that, my sister-in-law, his wife, found out she was pregnant with her first child. It was hard for her navigating her grief while pregnant, dealing with the fact that my brother will never know his son, and on top of all that, the reality of now being a single mom. My parents live in another country, and she doesn't talk to her folks much. So I started coming around a lot while she was pregnant. Bring her food, help with baby stuff and such. I was grieving too. It needed a company and it felt good knowing that I was helping out. After my nephew Charlie was born, I've been around way more, and he's become the most important person in my life and I love him. I still help out my sister-in-law with whatever she needs for him. Clothes, money, toys, baby food, you name it. Charlie's over a year old and is already talking. One that obviously caught me by surprise is when he said "Dada" to me when I came over yesterday morning. And I corrected him saying, "No, uncle." But I don't know. Guess he was stubborn. I confronted my sister-in-law on it, and she says they were reading a book together, and he got it in his head that I'm his Dada. Not sure about that, but throughout the rest of the visit he'd keep calling me that, and it would twist something in me. And sister-in-law wasn't doing anything to correct him. In fact, she'd encourage it. After she put him down for a nap, she asked me what's so wrong about him calling me that, and I sort of lost my temper. Didn't yell or anything, but what I said was, because I'm not his dad. And I'm not gonna disrespect my brother like that. So why would you? My sister-in-law looked like she wanted to cry, and I decided to end the visit there. In my drive back, I got a text from her. She told me sorry for thinking I'd feel happy to call me that, and she'll make sure he won't do it again. That I just didn't have to be mean by throwing the death of my brother at her face. I've had some time to think. It was an emotional moment for me, so I'm not sure if maybe that way I reacted made me an a-hole. Especially because I made her cry. Am I the a-hole? No a-holes here. It's a tough situation and you are both getting through it best you can. Props to you for stepping up. No a-holes here. But Opie, you need to sit down and think about the long run here. What role do you want in your nephew's life moving forward? Are you dating anyone? What will your partner think, when you get serious with one, about your relationship with your nephew? Will you step back from your relationship with your nephew when you have children of your own? Will his mother pull him back from his relationship with you when she finds a new partner? You need to figure out what you want, and what you're willing to do and be to this child. Then you need to sit down with your sister-in-law and clarify what she wants and expects as well. Do it now because your nephew is old enough to express an opinion so you can't fudge it anymore. No a-holes here. I would just explain to her that he caught you off guard, and you reacted poorly to the situation because you get emotional. It happens. And it sounds like everyone involved really love your brother. Not an a-hole. I don't think it's healthy that your sister-in-law was encouraging your nephew to call you Dada. I think you need to have a discussion reminding her that your intentions are to be a good uncle to Charlie, not to replace your brother as a father or a husband. I hope I'm wrong, but it is possible that her grief is making her misinterpret your support and see it as something more. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not telling my older sister-in-law my son's name before he's born? My husband has two sisters. Jane is older and Emma's younger. He and I are expecting our second baby, and we already have his name decided. Jane knows this because she saw my husband pick up the custom name sticker we got for the nursery, and now she's dying to know the name. She asked my husband, and he told her we'd reveal all when baby's here. Then she came to me and asked me, but I said no to giving her the name. The reason? When Emma had her son, she used the name Emma had mentioned when she was 6 months pregnant. Jane was also pregnant, and a couple of months ahead of Emma, and when Jane's son was born, she used the name Emma had chosen. Same first and middle name and also last. Emma ended up changing her son's name, and it really upset her. When my husband and I had our daughter, Jane went nuts over her name. She told us we had amazing taste, then joked that she wished she had a girl to use it on. My husband told her that wouldn't work anymore since we already had a child with a name. She just rolled her eyes at his response. Jane's due any day now with another baby, and I suspect she would use our son's name if we told her now. But she thinks I'm being too uptight, and should share the name since it's not a big deal, and can give her the chance to get something extra special for our son. I told her she doesn't need to get him anything, that anything she does want to buy can be purchased when he's here. Now she is really mad. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Also troll her and tell her a false name. Okay, but keep it a secret. Aloysius Bertrand Smith. She won't even know it's fake because either one, you can say you changed your mind, or two, she took the name so you would have to change it anyway. Imagine sister-in-law's kid ending up with a super weird name because sister-in-law stole the fake baby name. Poor kid has to go through life with a name like Giuseppe Agamemnon Smith because his mom couldn't come up with the name herself. Not an a-hole. The fact she stole her sister's child name is wild. I would not tell her either. Sounds like she may be digging for another name to steal. That's my theory. Especially given her reaction to my daughter's name, and her using the name her sister had chosen. Not a-hole. You need to update when you tell her a fake name. Let her steal it. And when she finds out your son has a way better name in the future, how mad she gets at you. She's fishing your son's name. Keep that door closed. Accidentally say it when he's kicking you. Ouch! Thomas Gray, that hurts. Then look around as if you're making sure no one heard you say it. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking a guest out of the house? Just for context, my girlfriend, 24 female, is the breadwinner in our household. I don't really make that much, but she has a stable job and her parents are loaded. So whenever it comes to big purchases, like our first home and car, etc., she handles it. I usually just try to buy the smaller necessities like household utilities and groceries. Obviously, I get teased and hassled about it from people we know once in a while. I really don't appreciate when this happens, and I've talked to my girlfriend about how she feels about these things. She told me what I do is enough for her, and the only thing that matters is that we are happy. There's a friend of hers who literally just won't shut up about me being the housewife, her exact words. She always passive-aggressively makes remarks about my income, and things about a man should care for his girlfriend. Since she usually does this in front of other people, I don't say anything because I hate making scenes in public, so I usually stay silent. We had a small get-together with some of me and my girlfriend's friends, and she was invited. The first thing she commented on was the decor in our house. She then smirked and asked if I was the one who paid for it or my girlfriend. My girlfriend gave me this look like, I'm sorry, and that really just set me off. After everyone came in, I asked her to come to the front door. When we got there, I asked her to put on her shoes. She asked where we were going, and I told her she was leaving because I'm not dealing with her stupid bull right now. She said it's not up to me since I didn't pay for the house, and I told her I would make sure she would have zero fun if she decided to stay. She said her boyfriend dropped her off and that she didn't have a ride, and I told her to go Uber or something. She left and some people started asking me where she was. I just said she had to go because something came up. But my girlfriend's friends didn't take the story because they overheard what she had said to me and guessed that I kicked her out. I just told them what happened, and they started berating me for kicking her out over nothing, and that if I was a real man, the thing she said shouldn't bother me. What hell does that even mean? My girlfriend is indifferent to the situation, but my girlfriend's friends don't seem to understand that it's freaking annoying to have to deal with that every time I see her. I feel conflicted, and maybe I shouldn't have kicked her out. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, but I'm concerned your girlfriend is only indifferent instead of being on your side. OP, you really need to stand up for yourself in a more direct approach. The way you handled things with your slime manner backfired. I'm not calling you an a-hole, but kicking her out and giving everyone else a different story was not making you look good. It gave her the opportunity to control the narrative, not that you have anything to prove to anyone. Additionally, you should have stopped her insults from the get-go. I understand it's challenging to do so in a group setting, but that seems humiliating to just take it in front of others. Just say it's rude, and tell her to stop in front of everyone. Not the a-hole, but your girlfriend is. Nobody should be disrespected by guests in their own home. Girlfriend should have shut this down the first time it happened. Your masculinity is not at issue. Your dignity and privacy are. Girlfriend should not allow her friends to mistreat the man she loves. Not the a-hole. I think you handled it beautifully, right down to saying she had to go. You may not have a lot of money, but you have a ton more class than anyone else in the story. I'm sorry that your girlfriend doesn't actively help you to remedy the situation. To be fair to her, these are all her childhood friends, and she has told me before that they are basically family. I especially wouldn't take that crap from family either. If my own mother said something insulting to my significant other, she'd be heading home. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking out my significant other for being replaced on vacation? I, 33 female, have been with my boyfriend, 55 male, for 3 years, Carl, and he has always been mortified by our age gap. Carl is worried that he will be seen as a sad old man, or that people will think I'm a gold digger. I, on the other hand, am unbothered. We both work in finance, and although Carl makes more than me, I make 6-figure salary and I'm self-supporting. He is currently staying with me for a couple of weeks as he lives a couple of states away. He has his own place, but we usually stay together 1 week a month minimum. Until the last 6 months or so, Carl refused to introduce me to anyone he knew, including his teenage/adult children, But I tolerated it because I assumed he was just cautious and would come around in the long run. Recently, a friend of his, George, 50s male, who I have worked with for the past 4 years and therefore know fairly well, had a couple of friends drop out of a holiday he had booked last year, a villa in Antigua, and asked if Carl wanted to go. As part of his invite, George told Carl he could bring a friend. It's important to note at this point that George is one of the few people that Carl has actually confided in about our long-term relationship. We have met for supper before as a couple, so I am 99% sure George was referring to me. Carl asked me if I wanted to go, and I was thrilled, as I felt like it was a major turning point in our relationship and that he was finally publicly acknowledging me. The next day, Carl calls me and tells me that he'd spoken to George, and it transpired that George wasn't bringing friends, as Carl had thought, but instead his 5 adult children, 20s, plus their boyfriends/girlfriends. Carl decided that this wouldn't be my scene, and informed me that he'd ask his son Ed, 18 male, to go instead of me. I was incandescent and told him to get the hell out. He has been texting me since, telling me I'm blowing it out of proportion, and that I wouldn't enjoy it anyway, as it is mostly kids. You are 5 years younger than me, so am I the a-hole for kicking him out for being disinvited from the holiday? Edit. Carl and I started dating not long after his divorce, which is why he was initially reluctant to introduce me. As far as I know, there are no skeletons in Carl's closet. Not an a-hole. Blowing out of proportion? You know what's out of proportion? A 55-year-old guy who is so insecure and scared for the judgment of others, so he tries to hide his girlfriend for 3 years. Are you sure he is not cheating or something? I think he lacks a lot of commitment. He lives out of town. They see each other 1 week each month. They've been dating for 3 years, and he refuses to acknowledge her to his family and friends. Sounds like dude already has a family, and Opie isn't it? Jesus, Opie. Why would you put up with this? Seriously. He's so ashamed if you keeps you secret? And you happily go along with it. For 3 years? Damn, where's your self-esteem? Your pride? I'm thinking that divorce never actually happened, and Opie is an unknowing side piece. Why are you dating someone who's ashamed of you? You're the a-hole for wasting your time with someone that is embarrassed to be dating you. 3 years you've been his dirty little secret. Get some self-respect. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my dad his decision to move on fast is the reason we feel the way we do? Hi guys. Me, 15 female, and my brother, 17 male, lost our mom 8 years ago. Our dad remarried 6 months after her death. We both found it really hard to come to terms with, and I'll admit we have been very cold and sometimes mean because of it. Our dad just moved on, and he expected us to move on after 6 months. It's been a pretty crappy few years for us. And earlier this year, our dad decided we all needed family therapy, and so we ended up there. And my brother doesn't want to talk. He sits and says nothing the whole time. But the therapist a few weeks ago, back in early October, asked me if I was willing to talk, and so I did. I said my brother and I were angry our dad remarried after 6 months. That he and his wife thought 6 months was enough for us to come to terms with our mom's loss and be ready for someone new living with us and trying to parent us. I said the fact they never saw anything wrong with it made us dislike them both, and that the reason neither of us bonded with the new members of our family was we were still really angry and hurt about it. And no matter how long has since passed, it doesn't erase what happened. I also said it was insulting to us that they thought she would be our new mom, and that we would love her the same, especially after the way they made everything happen when they moved so fast. My dad asked if I loved my stepmom now, and I said no. My brother didn't answer the question. He then asked why we were still holding on to it after so long. I told him because he might have needed to move fast for him, but he did so at our expense, and that was not something we could just forget about or get over like it didn't matter. Things have been tensed since. My brother is grounded for not opening up, and I was grounded for being rude. The therapist knows all this and has asked if we wanted to do individual sessions, but our dad's wife said no. Then my dad said we're doing it as a family so we can be a family. Am I the a-hole? Just adding some notes here because some things were asked multiple times. My mom's death was sudden, car accident. I am pretty sure there was no affair, but I can't say for sure. We believe they met at work after my mom died. My dad went back a week after she died, and a couple of days after that, he mentioned a new co-worker. We found them in bed together a month after my mom died. We think it was a one-night stand. That then became more because a month later, she was introduced to us as his girlfriend and she was unemployed, and they mentioned just before that the new co-worker left. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. This is made especially clear by the fact that you got grounded for what you said in therapy. Yeah, why on earth would a brother ever open up if he knows he can get in trouble for expressing himself? This is extremely damaging. Worst Dad of the Year award for real. Well, the brother didn't open up and still got grounded. So the only option is to lie, I guess? What a terrible father. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, but wow, your dad is. 6 months is crazy fast, and therapy should be a safe space. The fact that you're grounded for being rude and your brother's grounded for not opening up speaks volumes. I'm sorry you're going through this. So Opie gets in trouble for talking about her feelings, and her brother gets in trouble for not talking about his feelings. It's like, no matter what, these kids lose. Not the a-hole, but the dad sure is. Not the a-hole. Your father was and is very selfish. He may have been ready to move on after 6 months, less given that he presumably dated this woman before marrying her, but he had no possible right to demand that you and your brother process your grief at his convenience. Now he's punishing you because you're not playing into his happy family fantasy. It wouldn't be surprising if he is one of those who piously tells himself that he remarried for the kids, not for self-gratification, and resents that you and your brother aren't playing along. Your stepmother is a fool if she thinks that love can be commanded, and nothing in your post suggests that she is worthy of your love. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for blaming my dad for bringing my stepbrother into my life? My wife had an affair with him. My wife had an affair with my stepbrother. It was possibly the single most devastating thing I've been through. My marriage is over and everything is wrapped up money-wise. But I have a lot of anger and resentment at my dad for even bringing the piece of crap that is my stepbrother into my life. He was always a negative presence in our family, and I've complained to my dad numerous times as how our stepbrother was awful to my sister and myself. But my dad turned a blind eye because he was desperate to keep the sham of a family together. My dad has begged for forgiveness, but I no longer talk to him. My sister doesn't talk to him as well as an act of solidarity. I also told my granddad that I can no longer work in his company if my dad and stepbrother work there. I told him I was quitting. My granddad ended up firing my dad and stepbrother instead, and he is cutting my dad out of his will because he saw how hurt I was by everything. He doesn't want my stepbrother to benefit from him in any way. My dad reached out recently to say he is separating from his wife, so there will be zero link to my stepbrother, and if I would be open to talking to him. I said he was 15 years too late and stopped responding. Am I the a-hole for blaming my dad for playing a part in this? You're the a-hole. This has nothing to do with your dad bringing him into your life. This has to do with your ex-wife's commitment issues. Your stepbrother and ex-wife are the a-hole. The fact it took granddad cutting the dad out of his will just goes to show he never cared about his kids. He was with stepmother for all this time, but as soon as he's about to lose money, he breaks it off? Please, that man is as selfish as they get. Not the a-hole. Your granddad is a legend. Make sure you buy him a gift and spend some quality time with the man. Seriously, nice that you have someone like him in your life. This right here. You've got family that really cares about you and isn't afraid to stand by you. Spend your time fostering those relationships. They're the ones that will matter in the long run. You're the a-hole. Your wife, an autonomous adult, cheated on you with your stepbrother, another autonomous adult. Your father did not facilitate this simply by your stepbrother being around because of him. If he works with you for your grandfather, that is situational. Your father did not sweep your stepbrother into your life to steal your wife. You are being needlessly cruel to your parent because your unrelated brother screwed your wife. You are being cruel to your own parent because your wife screwed your stepbrother. You are not being cruel to your dad because your dad did something wrong. You literally turned his own parent against him to fuel your petty rage. You are so far from not being the a-hole that I'm surprised you aren't being studied by proctologists for being made entirely out of an a-hole. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for saying that my daughter inherits my house no matter what? I'm a single mom in my 50s with one daughter. I got very lucky in that I bought a home in the Bay Area nearly 30 years ago for around $230,000 before the tech boom, and now the house is worth about $1 million. I have a 23-year-old daughter, Camilla, who grew up in that house, and she moved out last year to go live with her boyfriend. I've never explicitly told my daughter the house will be yours, nor has she asked anything about it. But just sort of common sense. That's my daughter. Who else would I give it to? One important note. There are 2 homes in the neighborhood that are owned by lower middle-class people. Me and the neighbor who's been here as long as I have. Otherwise, our neighbors are engineers and software developers. The Bay Area is simply unaffordable if you're not in tech. My daughter is a hairstylist. My fiancé Steven and I have been together for 2 years. He has 2 young children, elementary school. He has joint custody of who I adore, and I'm excited to help raise them. Steven and I don't have a ton in the bank, so a prenup seemed silly if it weren't for the house. I told him that I'm ready to combine finances and plan long-term with him, but I wanted a prenup agreement just for the house. It's a non-negotiable for me that my daughter inherits the house. He wasn't happy with this. He said that $1 million split 3 ways is enough for all 3 kids to get a head start in life. I disagree. I paid 80% of the mortgage myself, and Camilla is my only child. She can have her dream life, working as a hairstylist, living in the Bay Area, with this house, but will be unhappy, have to move out to a less desirable area if it's split. I spoke to Camilla about this, and she agrees that she should get the house and said she always planned on inheriting it, just like I always planned on giving it to her. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You have been with this man 2 years and he is demanding that his kids receive an equal share of the home you paid for and raised your daughter in decades before he even existed for you? That's absurd. If you're going to marry this man and merge finances with him, you need to speak to an attorney first and make sure your wishes for your home will be followed in the event that anything should happen. But first, you should ask yourself, if you have to go to great lengths to protect your child from his greed and entitlement, if marriage and merging finances is something you really want to do with this person. You have been with this man 2 years and he is demanding that his kids receive an equal share of the home you paid for and raised your daughter in decades before he even existed for you? Not even an equal share. He wants the majority of the OP's primary asset, 66%, to go to his children, while the OP's child gets 1/3, despite the OP being the one who bought the house. He also didn't respect the OP, saying this is non-negotiable. OP, this is deal-breaker territory. If your fiancé won't sign the prenup, downgrade him to a friends with benefits. He's not respecting your asset and your agency. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. The house was purchased 30 years ago, long before you met Steven, and it is your separate property. I would not add him to your house deed. I'm not a lawyer, but I certainly would consult an attorney versed in estate law. I have my eyebrows raised that a fiancé of 2 years thinks his 2 children should get an equal share of your house that is your separate property, and that you have paid a mortgage on for nearly 30 years. Please protect yourself and contact an attorney. The entitlement, especially because the kids have a mother and a father that's not the OP. I have lived in Bay Area. 1/3 of that house will not go far for giving Camilla the future you and she want her to have. You are passing your good fortune and hard work on to your daughter. Makes perfect sense to me. Between Steven and his ex, they have the right and responsibility to provide for their 2 children as best they can. I agree, $300,000 is just a down payment. How in the world can she, or anyone, afford the $3,000 a month mortgage payment that would come with a new house? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not punishing my stepson for what he said to my daughter? I, 45 male, and my ex split 8 years ago. I met my current wife during our divorce and married her pretty quickly after it was finalized. I now live with my wife, 41 female, and stepson, 16 male, and while my ex offered 50-50 custody of our daughter, 15 female, I felt it better if she can stay with her mother so I could adjust to life with my new wife and stepson. So, she came every other weekend before the pandemic. She's been with her mom since March. Here's where the issue comes in. My stepson feels threatened by my daughter when she's here. I'm the only father figure he's ever had and he doesn't like sharing my attention. so he's often quite rude/mean to her. We normally just assure her it's because he's insecure. My stepson came home yesterday cheerfully saying that my daughter said she'd never come here again. I called my daughter to ask why she'd say that. According to her, my stepson has been saying since school resumed that I picked him over her and that I hated her coming to visit and how everyone was so happy these months she didn't visit. No one wanted her there and she needed to just stay away from us. He denied it, of course, but my daughter's friend filmed him at some point, gotta love the age of smartphones, and sent it to me. When confronted, he got watery-eyed and said he was just afraid of losing me. I told my daughter that I obviously didn't feel that way, and he just felt threatened by her presence. She asked if I was going to actually do something about his behavior this time, or if I was just going to brush it under the rug like I always did. I told her I didn't brush anything under the rug, but I wasn't going to punish him for being insecure about losing his father figure. She told me she was tired of his daddy issues being an excuse to treat her like crap, and since I wouldn't stand up for her, she wouldn't be visiting again. I tried to talk to my ex about it, but she said I picked him over her repeatedly and never stood up for her when he treated her poorly. So I don't get to play the victim now that she's fed up with it. I think they're both being oversensitive here, and my daughter needs to get over it and visit again. But my brother said I let my stepson boost my ego and failed my daughter by not standing up for her. My nephew suggested I post here. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. You did pick your new family over her, and then repeatedly leave her needs and emotions out of the equation. Him turning down 50-50 custody to weekend visits so he could adjust to life with his new wife and stepson really said it all. Yep, you're the a-hole. How do you not see this? Do you prefer stepson because he's a boy? It sounds like you are picking him first again and again. You even rejected 50% custody of your own kid. How is this a mystery to you? Opie likes feeling like a hero for playing such a large role in stepson's life. Daughter is considered old news. You're the a-hole.
Update. Am I wrong for refusing to sell my horse? Original post. Me 24 female and my boyfriend 26 have been dating for around 9 months. I've been riding horses since around 4 years old when I started taking lessons. When I was then I started helping out this girl at the stable with her horse lady. At 12 she told her she had to sell her due to time and interest, and asked if me and my parents wanted to buy lady. Luckily for me, my parents were able to buy her, and she's been mine ever since. She's my bestest friend and I love her a lot. When I started to date my boyfriend, I was very honest with the fact that my horse takes a lot of time, and he was fine with this. When single, I could spend like 3 to 4 hours a day in the stable, but as we started dating I cut this down to about 3 hours every other day, as this is roughly how long it takes for me to do all the cleaning, preparing food, riding. Also, most of my friends are at the stable, which obviously means this is also social for me. The other days I would not ride, and try to spend less time talking, which would make it about an hour. After about 6 months, he told me I spent too much time at the stable, and I should prioritize my relationship more, and somehow his family got involved in saying it was strange to prioritize her the way I did. I wasn't comfortable with this, but I am a bit of a pushover, so I agreed. At first this meant cutting down time at the stable, but it has evolved into cutting down riding days. Now I ride about 2 days a week, and the rest I'm simply there to do the basics. All of this as quickly as I can, because otherwise, I know he'll be annoyed and angry for days, and give me the silent treatment. I know my horse isn't really suffering from not being ridden as often as before, but I still feel very guilty that I'm always rushing around her. Then last night he told me it was time to sell lady. I laughed at him and asked if he was serious. He was. I told him no, and he said I needed to start prioritizing this relationship more, and I said I've done nothing but prioritize this relationship. We argued about it and he apparently thinks I can just put her down as she's old anyways. I was furious at this and told him that was absolutely not happening and I would never sell her. He said that any reasonable person would sell or put down their horse in favor of their boyfriend, and the only reason I wouldn't is because I only hang out with other insane horse people. So I come to you reasonable people of Reddit, am I wrong? Now for the top advice before reading the update. Not wrong. Info, what is he sacrificed or compromised on for the relationship? Dump the loser. Sounds like the horse will support you more than the man. I've had a similar conversation with a mate. I'm happy to speak to your soon-to-be ex too. Pretty early on in the relationship, he decided to take a job in the town I work in. He lives in like 40 minutes away. I didn't ask him to do this, but this is what he brings up when I tell him I've tried to compromise. I took a new job for you, and so you should compromise more. That is manipulation. Run away, don't walk, and make sure you're safe. Holy, not the idiot. Your boyfriend sounds controlling AF. You've worked hard to compromise with him, but he keeps moving the line until he eventually gets everything he wants, and you have sacrificed everything important to you. A lot of abusive partners start the cycle by trying to isolate their partner. You have a whole support network at the barn, and he wants you to give all that up in addition to your horse, who is like a member of your family to you. This is super messed up and a huge red flag. I know it really hurts, but be grateful he's shown you who he really is and how he doesn't prioritize or frankly care about your feelings and well-being. I'd run, not walk away from this guy. Don't forget he gives her the silent treatment and will be mad for days when she doesn't comply. Opus, you have a life, friends and hobbies you enjoy, and he doesn't like that. Cut and ride, baby. Not wrong. Not wrong. Slowly escalating demands that you give up your hobbies and things you care about is a classic mistreatment tactic. Making you feel guilty about the way you spend your time, especially when you've always spent your time that way, is a classic mistreatment tactic. Trying to force you go get rid of people or animals you care about is a classic mistreatment tactic. I'm starting to sound like a broken record here, but best you get out while that's the only thing broken. These tactics are meant to break your spirit, your will, your confidence, and your self-worth. Those are all far too valuable to allow him to break them. Plus, most of her friends are at the stable. She's already cut down her socialization time with her other friends in order to spend more time with him, and now he wants to get rid of any reason for her to go to the stable at all. That's classic isolation. Not wrong, keep your horse. Your friends probably miss riding with you. Time for your boyfriend to compromise or get out. She should really get out. Especially since he then called her friends insane horse people. That's just disrespectful and definitely trying to isolate. Edit. So I never expected this to get as much attention as it did. I'm very overwhelmed and thankful for all your kind comments and messages. I am currently sitting with Lady in her stable, crying my eyes out because this has been such a wake-up call for me. My boyfriend left to visit his family and friends in his old town earlier today before I posted, so for everyone worried, all is well for now and I will handle this as soon as possible. First, I need to go home and sleep. Thank you all for being wonderful. Now for the first update. First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who commented and sent me messages. I never thought my post would get as much attention as it did. It was very overwhelming. But again, thank you for your kindness and support. Also, thank you to the people who sent pictures of their horses. All of them are very cute. Anyway, you guys were right. I don't know why I didn't see it myself, but this behavior of isolating me has been going on for a while. He would say it was strange how much time I spent with my family, that adults didn't spend that much time with their family. When I pointed out he also spent a lot of time with his family, I was imagining and exaggerating things. There was so much going on, and for some reason I didn't realize it. He would make me feel guilty all the time, for the smallest things. Me and boyfriend didn't live together officially, because I thought it was too early. But since he had taken a job in the town where I live for me, he convinced me that him staying here during the weeks was a good idea. I feel incredibly stupid for not standing up for myself. I am a bit of a pushover, and I guess he realized that if he made me feel guilty, I would eventually give in. And I did. Just so many instances of him pushing my boundaries. Now the update, I called my brother on Saturday morning, and he came and helped me pack up everything my boyfriend left in my apartment. Then I texted my boyfriend to break up with him. Maybe I should have done it in person, but honestly, I don't want to see him again. He called a bunch before I answered. He was confused. At first, he tried to ask me what was wrong, what had happened. He got angry when I told him, saying he can't believe I was breaking up with him over a minor disagreement, and when I said him wanting me to off my horse isn't a minor disagreement, he said I must be misremembering. I eventually hung up, texted him that his things were packed, and free to pick up on the first floor of my building anytime. Then I blocked him. Haven't heard from him since. I was able to change my locks yesterday Monday, thankfully. Through mutual friends, I got in touch with his ex-girlfriend and we chatted on Instagram. I don't really want to say everything that she told me as it's not my story to tell, but I will say I'm very happy I got out right now this early. Since Friday when I posted, I've spent pretty much all day every day with Lady, my friends and family. I haven't been this happy in months, can't believe it took Reddit to get me here lol. For all those worried about Lady's safety, I too am a little worried, but it's eased by the fact that he never went to the stable with me, so I'm pretty sure he doesn't know where it is. And B, while I live in a country with a lot stricter gun laws than the US, the old man who owns the stable is a hunter and has assured me, with a lil wink, he will keep an eye out for any strangers lurking around. So that's all. I am safe and so is Lady. Both of us are a lot happier than we were 4 days ago, and a lot of it is thanks to all of you. So again, thanks so much for all the kindness. I'm so glad to read this. Make sure you remember this experience for next relationship too, as people have a tendency to miss the red flag behaviors, and also pick the same types of people over and over again. Be safe. I definitely will. Thank you. Just wanted to reply and say you definitely made the right decision. My ex of 7 years was pushing me to put my healthy but unrideable 11-year-old thoroughbred down for over a year before he broke up with me. I was even stupidly considering it. I wish I'd seen the signs of how unhealthy and controlling that relationship and his family had become. I was severely depressed for months before the breakup and never even saw why or saw it coming. I'm in an infinitely better relationship now with a man who pushes me to be at the barn more and give the best life to my horses, and my now 13-year-old thoroughbred is healthier and happier than he's ever been too. Best of luck and love to you and Lady. Oh, I'm so happy to hear you're in a better situation now. Hopefully a future boyfriend will be supportive. Thank you for your comment. Yay. Girl, I'm so proud of you for being strong and having such a great family. As someone in a relationship with an abuse survivor in a similar isolating pattern, I'm so happy you got out now, because it only gets worse from there. And it says so much your brother was so ride or die. Even after isolating from him, he came and helped you right away. Sadly, my horse passed away many years ago, but I still dream about him. Lady is so important, and so much more than just a pet. She's a hobby and a passion too, and you deserve someone who sees and understands that. To many more years together. Second update. I posted on Reddit almost a year ago seeking help and advice on a bizarre situation that happened in my relationship. At the time I was in a somewhat harmful relationship, or at least the beginning of it. I read my post back a while ago and realized how much I sugar-coated things at the time. Part of me was still in denial, I think. I didn't describe any of the aggressive outburst. The yelling, throwing things, pushing, grabbing. He never hit me, it never got that far, but in hindsight, I think that's where things were heading. Still, people on here saw red flags and told me to get away. I guess thousands of people telling you something is very effective, and I broke up with him that day. I never told my family that Reddit was the reasons I left that day. I still feel bad that their concerns and warnings weren't enough to make me leave before it was too late, but random internet strangers were. I've only told my therapist. Sorry that you're not getting more credit in real life, folks. This week, I found out that my ex-boyfriend has been arrested for unliving his girlfriend. News travels fast between small towns. I knew he had a new girlfriend. They met fairly quickly after I dumped him. I didn't know her or who she was, just heard it from other people. I looked up her Instagram when I found out he was arrested. She seems nice, from what little I can make out from pictures and captions. I feel guilty that I didn't track her down when they met and warned her, but when I found out he had another girlfriend, all I could think was, thank God, then he will forget about me. Does that make me an awful person? Maybe, I don't know. And I could never imagine he would do something like this. Even now it doesn't feel real. Yes, he had anger management issues, but murder. It's just difficult to comprehend. I'm rambling, sorry. It's been a crazy few days, but I feel really grateful to the people on here. Because that could have been me if I had stayed with him, if people hadn't shaken me awake. So thank you, Reddit people. Also, screw you, Adam. Hope you rot in hell. I remember you, and I'm so glad you got out when you did, before things got worse. Remember not to let survivor's guilt get to you. What he did is on him. OMG, I was one of those strangers telling you to get out. I remember your update and being happy that you got out, and your horse was okay and protected by your friend in case he tried something. If you had tried to warn her, it would have gone one of several ways. 1. She believed you and got out. Then he would be angry at you and redirect his anger back at you. 2. She didn't believe you, and he would have painted you as the jealous ex trying to get back with him. And she would have had the same unfortunate fate. As the top comment said, do not let survivor's guilt affect you. There wasn't anything you could have done. I remember that post. Anyone who suggests ending a beloved pet for their convenience is someone I would run, not walk away from. I'm glad OP is safe, and she and Lady escaped this man. Yeah, and she said he never even went to the stable. Like, this horse is obviously a very important part of her life, and he's never even bothered to meet her. I feel like that's a red flag even before it got to the part of the boyfriend wanting to off the pet. Last story. My brother unknowingly saved my life 10 years ago. Today I finally told him. Me and my little brother always had a very strong bond. We never actually argued or been mean to each other. We always covered each other's back and overall been very affectionate towards each other. We come from complicated background, with chaotic family relationships and performance-oriented parents. I moved out as soon as possible, now happily married to an awesome man, far away from my previous home. My little brother is struggling under pressure my parents are putting on him, forcing him to be a man, having good grades and excel in sports, and even though he is now legally adult, he's still living with them. He is facing great opportunities, being chosen for next national football team, but is exhausted both mentally and physically, and overall under a lot of pressure, especially from the side of our father. For last year, he is constantly stressed and has severe insomnia. We are in contact almost every day, and I am trying to help him, offered him to move with us multiple times, but he is too afraid of our father to do it. Today I could not sleep because my husband is snoring heavily during this time of a year, so I was just browsing internet when my brother messaged me asking for help. He said that I am the only person he can talk about it and that he is thinking of some bad things and does not know what to do. He was in very bad state of mind, basically falling apart. I immediately told him to come see us and stay for a while and said that we can resolve it together. I was so afraid, but also very happy he reached to me and asked for help. He is gentle giant type of guy, being forced to ignore his own needs to perform good enough in the eyes of our parents, with no tolerance for mental health issues. He had several injuries related to sport, some quite severe, problems in school. There is a possibility he would need to repeat whole year and will not be able to make it to final exams. We have been talking for whole night. He said I am his most beloved person and thanked me for being with him. I told him that it is nothing to thank for because he is my little cupcake and I love him no matter what. And then I told him what happened 10 years ago. I was 16 and he was 9. I was not well, battling with undiagnosed mental illness, bullying, and eating disorder. I felt alone, with no support and basically in the same situation as him, but not as strong as him to ask for help. One evening after argument with my father, I decided to end things. I went to my room, sat next to my bed and prepared myself for the next step. Then I heard my brother knocking on door. He asked if I want to play our Pokemon game. We basically pretended to be Pokemon trainers, catching imaginary Pokemons and having fun. I sat there in silence for a while, with a razor in my hand. Then he asked again. I put razor back and unlocked the door. I was crying, and he was confused because I was smiling the same time. He told me that he will let me choose my Pokemon first to cheer me up. I hugged him and cried like an idiot, then we played together. Today I told him that he saved my life, even though he did not know about it back then. And we both cried. After this, we agreed on getting him immediate medical and psychological help, not telling anyone except my husband, who is incredibly kind and supportive. Then we will arrange things so he can stay with us for a while. Sorry for being sentimental, I just needed to tell anyone that there is no weakness in asking for help. It is very brave. I think that sometimes one just needs to play Pokemon games. It can change so many things. My brother did the same for me when we were 15 and 8. I was in the bathroom about to do the unthinkable, and he knocked on the door. He asked, "Can you make us some meatball soup when you're done?" And it hit me in that second, if I am not around, nobody will take care of him. The most important person in my life would have nobody on his side. Our parents were in art useless, and he can't fend for himself. I got his name tattooed on my arm last Friday, so that whenever I'm feeling like I need to end things, I have the reminder of why I live. Despite him being 17 now and is close to adulthood, we still need each other. My older brother left his 7-year awful relationship and came back in my sister's and I's lives, having to come back home with our parents. My sister was also going through a horrible relationship as the three of us were all raised with very minimal emotional and mental support from parents who believed that you have house, food, and water, what else do you need? One day my brother came home early from work and found my sister sitting alone at the table with a bottle of pills ready to end herself and basically thinking about it alone at the dining table. My brother found her before she did it, and she just sobbed in his arms, and that became the catalyst to leaving her crappy ex. My brother, sister, and I have matching triquetra tattoos as a result of that happening, because if it weren't for my brother, we wouldn't have each other, and it was the best way to ensure that no matter what happens with our lives, we'll still be thinking about each other and ready to help when needed, especially for my sister who I love dearly, and would have absolutely lost my mind if I lost her to some loser ex.